Fry, and welcome back to a Pastor's Chat. Today I have Josh Niese. He's the new leader of our Heritage Youth Group, and I've known him since he was a kid in high school, or knew of him, and when he attended my brother's church and worked with their youth group, and then you worked in Findlay with the church there, the youth group, and you've just been in the youth ministry for a long time, so we're glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
I know you have we had told the people before, you have your master's degree in
Public health. Public health administration.
And you work for the health department.
Yep, that I do. Yeah, it's been
COVID has been
yeah, unfortunately, because of my job, it's something that I really can't get away from. But I firmly believe, though, like when I started the year here, I did not think that working for health department during a pandemic, like I had shared a little bit before, wasn't really on my radar. But I'm a firm believer that God puts you where He wants you, and it's been humbling to kind of be in a position like this to help the community, regardless of where I am. I've been able to help as far as here at answering a question you guys might have, the community I work in, and it's.
We've leaned on you a lot during this pandemic. I know there's people out there that believe that everybody's going to get it and everybody's going to die. There's people out there believe that it's just a political move, but it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to treat it that way because some people are dying, right?
Yeah. The unfortunate situation is everything you just described is describing the how COVID is. I mean, I think it is being used from a political standpoint. It is very serious. And at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we keep people safe, regardless of opinions or political stances or anything of that nature. And that's ultimately what we are trying to do, is be a voice of reason, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and so I spend a lot of my time trying to provide clarity for that type of information.
So wearing masks is a good thing to do. Keeps your neighbor from getting it, keeps your friends from getting it.
Absolutely. And I was just sharing it with somebody earlier here that, I've seen personally with my own eyes the effectiveness of a mask. And I know there's a lot of controversy whether they work or not, but multiple instances where I know that someone did test positive and was relatively close to somebody and it did not spread because masks were in place. And so it's one thing you hear things on the news, social media, things of that nature, but when you kind of see things with your own eyes, it helps believe in how effective things are. And so I do believe that they do work. And
you've been spot on to help us here, because we've had to close down. We had people that had it here in the church, mm-hmm. and we didn't want it to spread. So the best thing to do is to have church, but not in the building.
Yeah. And
we've been doing that with the videos are reaching maybe more than we were reaching on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, and that's the glory of the situation was God can still work and God can still move regardless of the circumstances. And I firmly believe that this is an opportunity for us to maybe pivot and to be a little bit more creative in some of those things. And I think that some of the views and some of the things, that's great evidence of you can't stop God's movement.
No, and He's moving within our youth group. And you've started a few new things. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the kids here at Heritage?
I think the kids are great. What I can tell is that come from strong families. They have a very hungry, very thirsty to try to learn. I think that got a really good core group, and it's been exciting to get to know them, to just try to kind of be myself and get to know them better and try to connect with them in ways.
Through the years, I've been here 35 years, and there's usually one kid that you have that just kind of leads the others. They're very dominant, they're very strong. And I look at the group that we have now, and we have about 4 of those kids mm-hmm. that are just dead serious about their Christianity.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of kids I want my kids around. I want my grandkids around.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing about it too is they're not all the same age. We've got some various years where they are in school, and so it's not as if at graduation this year we're going to lose a bunch of people, and so that's what's really exciting. It's what makes me excited looking towards the future regarding that, because I think we've got a really good core group, and I'm excited to just kind of build upon that and do what I can and try to help be a mentor.
You and your wife, I mean your family, it's a good fit because Jesus Christ is real to you. I led our youth group when I was a kid in high school, and my brother led it when he was a kid. He's 8 years younger than me. And why? Because God was real to my pastor. God was real to my dad and mom. God was real to my grandparents. So I knew God was real. And we have a lot of that in this church where the parents are, God's real to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they live in that realm of Christianity and in that kingdom of God. And their kids automatically see it, because if you got Christ in you, your kids can't not see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think that it's a humbling experience when you really do think about it, because at the end of the day, and I'm a parent as myself as we have talked about it, when you think about it from God's perspective, what my role is in my children's lives, it's not to control them. It's not to have best friends. I mean, ultimately, my role is to equip and prepare for their future, so that way they eventually can see what God's purpose is for them. That's a pretty daunting task, but it also is very humbling when you think about, at the end of the day, God has blessed me with the opportunity to be their parent, but they're His children. They're His children first. Absolutely. Before mine. And so for me, as a youth director, I kind of, my perspective or my viewpoint is that I'm kind of a glorified eye doctor. My job is to come in and provide a perspective, a corrective lens, if you will, because we all know that we've got to experience our spiritual journey. You work out your faith with fear and understanding, and you kind of do that on your own. But what happens, and I was looking back through my life, is where I've done the most spiritual growth for me is when I've had people come alongside me, mentors come alongside me. And it isn't necessarily even in my own home. I think I've mentioned before, I had kind of an interesting upbringing as far as with my own family. So I've experienced some of those broken relationships and turmoil, if you will, coming from a little bit of a divorced background and things of that nature. But that I see that God, those circumstances did not change God's love for me, and I had to look elsewhere as far as to have some of those mentors in my life. And I contribute much of my own spiritual growth to having the right people that God put in my life at those times, and so that's kind of where I feel like I fall into this situation, is I'm just here to help provide you some perspective as you attend here.
And we do have a mix in our youth group. Mm-hmm. We have kids that their parents, the biggest impact my dad had wasn't when he corrected me or what he taught me. He taught me a lot and he corrected me a lot, but it was when he prayed. Mm-hmm. My dad was a man's man, but when he prayed, I knew he was talking to someone that he respected, mm-hmm. someone that he knew could do it all, could handle the situations. And that was a difference. But we have kids from backgrounds like that. We have kids from divorce backgrounds. Mm-hmm. We have kids that have been adopted. We have all that within our youth group. Yeah. And God has brought you in alongside of them to help mentor them. And I know one thing about you and your wife, because I've observed you for many years. The kids can see God in your life.
Well, I'm a firm believer. Matthew 5:16 is one of my favorite verses. And it says, "Let your light so shine before all men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." And early on in my life, I felt like God provided that verse for me and helped me to understand my role. And at the end of the day, I am to live my life so that when people look at me, they see God, and naturally they turn to God as well. And I really took that to heart when I was younger. And I am so fortunate that God introduced me to a lovely woman who I can't say enough amazing things about, who shares in that perspective as well. And so ultimately what we're trying to do is live our lives together, trying to lead others, and do as best as we can to try to point other people's directions, other people's visions towards God.
We want to thank you for being
It's great to be
with
here.
me today and with our kids, and your light is shining bright, and our kids will grow in the Lord. I know we have activities for the kids, but that isn't to keep our kids entertained. That's to bring other kids in.
Right. Right. So I was thinking about this, and a good way to put it. So in Proverbs 27, it talks about how iron sharpens iron, and like iron sharpens iron, a friend sharpens a friend. And I was thinking about this contrast of iron. If you hit iron together, you can dull a blade.
Yeah.
But it's when the iron has purpose, when the iron actually is being used in its purpose, that's how you can sharpen each other. And so there are times where we can get together just to try to connect and just essentially to hang out, but ultimately everything we do has a purpose.
Absolutely.
It's to get together, and it's to break down those barriers, and it's to try to get people to open up and to guide them through that spiritual journey. Now, it's not easy, and it's also not it's not something that happens right away. So what I try to do is try to facilitate a conversation, to try to get them to think, and try to let them let the Spirit talk to them in the midst of that situation. For years I led Bible studies, and I always felt like, being a Bible study leader, it was my job to come in and drop the biggest nuggets of wisdom for everyone who's around. And I learned I got burnt out by doing that, because I would do so much intense studying and preparations for these weekly meetings, and I realized it wasn't even that effective. And I had a mentor of mine come alongside me and said, your job as a leader is to facilitate the discussion so the Spirit can move, not to be the smartest person in the room, not to drop all this wisdom that you have or that God has bestowed upon you. You're here to lead the discussion. And so did a lot more studying regarding how to lead discussions with people. And I try to bring this approach with all of our studies, all of our times together. Are you familiar with the 4 Quaker questions?
Yes.
So basically it starts out with, for those that might not be aware, it starts out very basic, very simple. Where did you live? Where did you live between the ages of 7 and 12? Anyone can answer that. Very basic, doesn't take a whole lot of thought. Then the next question goes to, how are the winters like there? A little bit more of a description, a little bit more of a ties into the memory banks, and you have to talk a little bit more about that. Third question would be more or less, how did you stay warm during those winters? In more conversation, more goes into that answer. And then the last one eventually becomes kind of the big heavy hitter. When did God become real to you? And ultimately, as a leader, we want to get to that 4th question right away.
Right.
But it takes time.
Right.
We can't jump straight to question 4. And so I try to bring that approach with every time that I meet. And it might be something as simple as, during Christmas, it was, what's your favorite Christmas cookie? That's something simple. Everyone has an opinion about that. And it's by breaking some of those layers away, some of those boundaries, in order to get to more of the deeper questions and try to get the deeper answers as far as that goes.
So youth ministry isn't all fun and games. Youth ministry has a purpose, and that purpose is to make sure that the kids get a view of who Jesus Christ is. And when they get a view of him, they can't turn away.
Absolutely.
Because it's real. It was real to me as a kid, it's real to you as a kid, and it's real to our kids as a kid. And we're seeing that all through our youth. And I want to thank you again for your insights. And the key always is our purpose. And if our purpose is for Jesus Christ, every question is going to lead every statement's going to lead, every work is going to lead to an empowerment in Jesus Christ.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you again, Josh. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah.